Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Representative Scott Bottoms, one of Colorado's liberty leaders serving in the state legislature. Representative Bottoms is standing up for Colorado voters, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and the state constitution by suing Governor Jared Polis and Speaker of the House Julie McCluskie. Well, Representative Bottoms, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you for inviting me. This is an important time.
Well, before we talk about the lawsuit, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? Where's your district? Why did you run for office?
Well, my district is the eastern side of Colorado Springs, House District 15. And I've been a pastor for over 30 years and really just got tired of the whole system, got tired of everything, and also kind of got tired of complaining without doing. And so really prayed about it a lot, felt like God was telling me to do this. And so ran for office, and here we are.
Well, I really appreciate you making the effort to join the fight. Like you said, there's so many people out there who are willing to complain, post things on social media, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of fortitude to stand up, to put your name on the ballot, run for office, and then serve the people and stand up when something doesn't happen right, like we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, this is one of the things that has bothered me is when conservatives get in office and then they don't stand up. They say a bunch during campaigning, but that they don't stand up. And then also, I know the liberal push and the against life, against liberty, against Second Amendment, all the things that the Dems are doing. But when I actually got to the House and realized they're also many of them are very corrupt and don't go by the rules. They're bullies. A lot of this stuff is what is driving this whole thing.
Yeah, I appreciate you adding that context in it because a lot of Coloradans unfortunately have just the eighth grade civics understanding of how our government works and don't understand this cronyism, the corrupt insiderism, and how these politicians especially on the Democratic side claim to support democracy or the Constitution or whatever it is, whatever they need to say when they need to, but actually will do everything they can to subvert the rules to push their agenda through and disregard the Constitution every chance they get.
Yes, that is definitely true.
Well, on Thursday, December 28th, you filed suit in Denver District Court to stop House Bill 23B 1002 from becoming law, which was passed during the special session. Can you provide some background on this bill and why you filed suit?
Well, this is a very big subject. This isn't just this bill. There's a lot that goes along with it. This bill got caught in the middle of it and should have been caught up in it. But what had basically happened, and this was a rollover from last session to our spring session. The Democrats were getting more and more out of control with using rules that should not have been used, unethical behavior, breaking rules that are in existence, going against the Constitution, and specifically Speaker McCluskie picking on me and a couple other representatives that just don't agree with her. We weren't breaking rules, we weren't doing anything wrong, but she doesn't like what we say, and so she harasses, specifically me. She harasses me a lot. She has called me in the office and yelled and screamed at me. I mean, this is unhinged, crazy behavior. Well, we come to special session, and there's four bills on the docket from the House, and one came over from the Senate. But these bills have nothing to do with income tax. That's what we were there for, theoretically, was to lower income tax. We didn't do that at all. In fact, we actually raised some extra monies that are going to come from the taxpayers. And so we're discussing this and debating this stuff. And Speaker McCluskie is not liking the direction the arguments are going. She's not liking what different individuals are saying. She's getting more angry and emotional, which she does every single time. This is why she stays so unhinged. And she gets angry at her own Democrats too, because they don't step in line with her. And so we had got to a point where there was a bunch of pro-Palestinian conversations and yelling and screaming, and then finally erupted into the actual House chambers up above with these protests where they're waving flags and screaming and yelling. And this went on for probably 45 minutes. And the speaker did nothing to stop it. It is the House rules that she is supposed to stop that. We're not supposed to sit there and listen to all this screaming, yelling, and and violent language, flags being waved. All that's against the rules. Everybody in the House knows it, and she wasn't doing anything to stop it. And so we're just sitting there watching and listening to this. Now, if somebody wants to protest outside, go do it. You know, the state police will take care of all that stuff. But she was just sitting there watching. And I believe even kind of complicit in letting it happen. I think that's on video too. But so after it's over, she gets up and explains that we are all supposed to agree with what they all said. And this is on video. You can go look at it. It's part of the lawsuit. And that we're supposed to see this as peaceful dialogue with constituents. I mean, none of that stuff's true. And I'm sitting there listening to this, knowing I'm about to get up and speak. I'm the next one in the well to speak. And she told us we will not say anything about this. We will not discuss that this was not peaceful, all this. And so when I get up, I talked about the bill. And then I said, and by the way, I do not agree that this was peaceful dialogue with constituents, because it wasn't. And immediately she gavels me down. I mean, this is less than 10 seconds. She gavels me down and tells me I must leave the well. And then she calls me into the office and screams and yells at me, because she is the epitome of bully. And this is what most Democrats are. They're bullies. If you don't agree with them exactly the way they must do things, they'll break the rules, they'll lie, they'll do whatever they want, and they'll bully you. And that's what Speaker McCluskie has done over and over and over. And I can prove this very easily with video. And so she said she's not going to recognize me anymore on thirds, which is not okay. 85,000 people sent me to the House to represent them, and she just is not going to listen to me because she doesn't like what I said. And by the way, later in the day, a Democrat representative screamed and yelled at the speaker pro tem from the well, cussed at them, told them they were racist, all this stuff. Then went up and sat in the gallery for an hour screaming and yelling down. And the speaker did nothing to stop it. The speaker pro tem did nothing to stop it. They gave me less than 10 seconds and shut me down because they didn't like what I was saying, which I was not breaking the rules and I was speaking truth. And so then I get up later to speak on this bill. And the bill's a horrible bill. And I get up to speak against this and she won't acknowledge me. And I want to try to read the bill at length, which is my constitutional right, and the lawsuit explains that any representative can ask to read the bill at length at any time, and they must do it. And I wanted to read the bill at length because it's a horrible bill and it needs to get out there. And so she kept ignoring me, and there would be nobody else standing there to speak. And she would look around and say, if there's no one else, and I'm standing there with my hand raised, this is on video over and over and over. It's on video for almost an hour. And then finally she says, okay, if there's nothing left on this bill, then our minority leader gets up and he starts to speak on it. And I'm still just trying to have this read at length. I just want to step into the well and have this read at length, and I'm not allowed to do that. And so I finally take one of my legislative business cards and I write, I would like to read this bill at length, but I've been ignored in the well, and I hand it to the clerk. Clerk shows it to the speaker. Speaker ignores it. They call the lawyers, legal, and says, can he do this? Which is silly. Of course I can. They didn't need to ask the lawyers. I'm allowed to do this. It says it in the Constitution, not just but see, the speaker had already made it clear to everybody that she was not going to acknowledge me. And so everybody is scared of her because she is a bully. And so she doesn't recognize me. The minority leader Lynch is still speaking. Finally, he finishes. I'm still standing there with my hand raised. And she looks around, ignores me, and says, since no one else needs to speak, we're going to move on and vote on this bill. They vote on this bill. It's over and done with. And they never read it at length. And even the lawyers, the legal services came and talked to me and apologized and said, you did have the right to read that at length. We're sorry that this happened, but everything was moving fast. And I said, no, it wasn't moving fast. I stood there for an hour with my hand up. That's nobody's definition of moving fast. And so it's just the Speaker of the House continuing to do what she does. She breaks rules. She's a bully. She manipulates people. She attacks her own party in the process. She attacks us ad nauseum. And we're just tired of it. And we're not going to let this one stand. And this bill, such a bad bill, we had to address this because it was shoved through unconstitutionally. And we're not going to allow that to happen.
Well, no, definitely applaud the efforts of standing up. I know down at the state capitol, I was a legislative aide back in 2017, so I got to experience being down on the floor and the chaos of it, and the leadership pushing the legislators around and trying to control exactly the flow of the process here. So I completely understand how the speaker can be such a bully, and really, it's shameful the lack of respect that the speaker has for representatives of the people of Colorado. Like you said, 80,000 people sent you there to have a voice. You're a voice for the people in your community, and the speaker doesn't want to hear it because of a political agenda. I mean, it's a perfect example of just how far things have gone in our state legislature, where they allow these ruckus, protesters, people with violent rhetoric up there shouting, and allow that to happen. Let it, amplify their voice, give them a platform to speak, but they won't allow an elected representative to actually follow the Constitution and have the voters, have the other legislators understand what's actually in this bill. I mean, it's absolutely shameful behavior from the speaker.
Something interesting about this too. I just read an article, I think it was last week, and I think Colorado Politics put it out. I'm not sure. But it was a very long article having to do with decorum, and that the Speaker of the House was upset because we don't have any decorum. The Republicans are not the problem here. We're not the one yelling and screaming from the gallery. We've never done anything close to that. When she asked me to leave the well, even though she was wrong, she was bullying, she was breaking the Constitution and the rules of the House. When she did that, I left the well. I always go by the rules, and that anybody can assess that by just watching the video of last session and the special session. I go by the rules. In fact, part of the reason I couldn't get the bill read at length is because I'm standing there politely with my hand raised, which is the rules. And so she's talking about decorum while her Democrats are screaming and yelling and cussing from the upper gallery, while her Democrats are standing on the floor screaming and yelling. And here's another thing that was included in that article was the fact that Representative Epps and Representative Marshall, both Democrats, she didn't say this, but they're being disciplined by being taken off the Judicial Committee. And she says it's because it's acrimonious. That has nothing to do with it. It's because Epps and Marshall sued her last session. And once you do something like that to the Speaker of the House, you will be punished, and you will be punished severely. Now, I don't agree with Representative Epps' behavior during special session. Under no circumstances am I justifying that. But they were set down because they sued last session. Representative Marshall has never screamed and yelled like that from the gallery. He's never done anything like that in committee or anything. I disagree with him on a political level, but he is not acrimonious and disruptive or any of those kind of things. The speaker just made it clear, you go against her and you will be bullied. And it's the same thing with me. She just shut me down within 10 seconds. And we just don't, I'm saying the Republicans, we go by decorum. Now we'll get up in the well and we'll debate and argue voraciously, but that's because we believe in what we're saying. We're not breaking rules in the process. I've never done that. I've never broke the rules that way. But she accuses me. In fact, she even sent me a letter last session that was like punishing me or something. I don't know. I didn't even read the whole letter, but she was attacking me because I don't go by her rules. Well, they're not her rules. They're the rules of the House, and they're the Constitution. And literally, she is unhinged. She does not need to be in that leadership position. We even saw just a little bit later after she shut me down, one of the other representatives was speaking, and the Speaker Pro Tem Kennedy, he said, "Your time is up." And the person that was standing there thought he was saying, "Get back to the bill." So he turned around and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, or something like that. Let me get back to the bill. And the speaker just screamed at him. This is on video. Just screamed at him. "You will get out of the well now." Screamed. Well, how is that decorum? The Republicans aren't screaming at the Democrats. The Democrats are bullying the Republicans. And I'm done with this. I'm tired. This is why the lawsuit. You're not going to bully us. You're not going to treat us with disrespect. You're not going to have a lack of decorum and integrity and character. We are human beings that deserve the right to be spoken to properly and gone by the same rules that supposedly you're going to keep the Democrats accountable with, which doesn't happen either.
Well, exposing the behavior, exporting this unhinged behavior from the speaker really does explain a lot. I know exactly what you're talking about with the decorum articles, and of course, the slew of Democrats who are resigning this year, specifically over the hostile environment. So the speaker's behavior, kind of explains that story about how these legislators don't feel comfortable there at the state legislature with such a bully as their leader.
Yeah, and the Speaker of the House's responsibility is to be nonpartisan and take care of the House, the rules of the House and all that stuff. And I understand that it's literally impossible for anybody to be nonpartisan. I understand that. And you're going to lean towards your party a little bit. That is not what is happening. The Speaker has no control over the House. They will sit and scream at the Speaker. The Democrats, the Republicans don't. We've been called racist. We've been called everything, and the Speaker just sits there and let them do that. We can't even breathe funny, and she'll scream at us. But she'll let the Democrats do anything. She is not only part of the problem, she's a major push of the problem. Like the Palestinian protest, it's her responsibility to get that house clear. That's literally her job. And she was sitting there letting it go. And some of the cops were trying to do it, and she was just sitting there watching them. And this is on video, even kind of shaking her head no to not mess with them. Well, that is against her job. That is the opposite of her job. A good speaker that is honest, full of integrity and character, and does not pick on either side could quickly get that house back in order. But she's lost it. She has no control over that house anymore.
Wow. Yeah, definitely a failure of leadership in the state house for sure. Talking about the bill. So this bill, House Bill 23B 1002, raids the Tabor reserves to the tune of $182 million. It was passed into law just weeks after Colorado voters overwhelmingly rejected Proposition HH. Of course, Proposition HH did a very similar thing, raiding Tabor reserves, taking away people's tax refund money. So it was really shameful behavior to see the House Democrats, the Senate Democrats, and the governor, of course, push this bill through to raid the Tabor reserves for their own little political agenda.
Yeah, this bill. So again, I said there was 4 bills that they brought up, and they were supposed to help the taxpayers. None of them helped the taxpayers. None of them lowered income tax. None of them did any of this stuff. They were fake bills, and we called them out on every one of them. They were fake. They were lies, and one of them, not this one. This one also messes with Tabor, but there's another one that came right after this that I can explain too. But this one basically added a refund mechanism. And what that means is how you get your refund. And what it basically did is it said people without Social Security numbers now have access to twice as much refund as people that are actually paying taxes. So you've got non-taxpayers now being allowed literally twice as much of a refund. The word refund means you paid something. These people are non-tax paying people. They do not have Social Security cards. They are in the category that would include illegal immigrants, but they're going to get whatever my tax refund is. Let's say that it's $700. Okay. They will be allowed to get $1,400, although they paid no taxes. That will pull from the overall Tabor money, which means when you're finished, whatever Tabor money is left is now what is divided up for the taxpayers refund. Now, how can you give a refund to somebody that does not pay taxes? This is what this bill does, and we argued against it. The Republicans were in lockstep on this. This is not constitutional. This is not right. There are people that are coming into our country and into our state illegally, and the mayor is begging them to come because Denver is a sanctuary city. And these people are coming in droves, and now they're going to get tax refunds for never paying taxes, and it takes away the actual refund from taxpayers. And so we just stood up against it. The next bill that they tried to pass, and I'm going to be challenging that one on a constitutional level, because they basically, it was HH light. They brought HH back and said, no, we're going to use Tabor refunds. And I read to them out of the Constitution where they're not allowed to do this. And it was a recreation of a bill that was done in a previous session. And I read to them from that bill that this is Tabor refunds. Then I read out of the Constitution that this is constitutionally prohibited. And I did that in seconds and in thirds. And I told them in both seconds and thirds, that I was going to attack this on a constitutional level after session, because they're just going to vote it in. And the Democrats have told us over and over, we'll vote it in, you deal with it in the courts, knowing that it's not constitutional, knowing it's not a legal bill, not a legal a law. And they say, well, we're going to do it. If you want to attack it, you got to do it in the courts. And so that's what we've been doing last session. That's what we did in special session. So I am suing over this bill because they just did it unconstitutionally. And I will be attacking the other one on a constitutional level because they blatantly, knowingly went against the Constitution by making this bill enacted after the voters had just 2 weeks earlier, the voters had just said, no, you will not use our Tabor refunds for a bill. And they came back, used almost the exact same bill and said, no, we're going to do it anyway. Doesn't matter what the voters said, we're going to do this anyway.
Wow, yeah, there's definitely a pattern of behavior among Colorado Democrats in the state legislature pushing their agenda, totally disregarding the Constitution. The agenda comes above all else. And like you said, they know what they're doing. They know it's unconstitutional, especially when you talk about the gun bills and some of the other legislation they pass. If regard for the Constitution does not play into their equations. It's all about serving their special interests, rewarding their groups, their people that got them into office, and pushing their agenda to further control society in their scheme.
The Democrats strongly disagree, and I'm speaking for most, not all Democrats, I'm sure, but definitely the Democrats in the House, and they proved this through voting. In fact, a couple of people that did not vote in lockstep, those are the ones that are resigning right now.
Hmm.
I believe there's more to it. I believe they've been told, you're done, you're out. We will get a Democrat in that will vote with us, because does happen regularly in the House. Well, even on some of the gun bills and everything, they have proved they do not believe in life. They do not believe in liberty, and they prove strongly this session they do not believe in the pursuit of happiness, which originally in the Constitution was the right to own property. The Democrats are doing everything they can to kill babies, take away liberties, take away parental rights, take away children's rights, and then now also doing everything they can to make you lose your right to ownership of property, destroy the ability for people to own houses through property taxes, through first right of refusal, all kinds of crazy things that they ran last session. And they're trying to take property out of the hands of the Colorado voter. And this comes straight from the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, that says we don't need to own land. Everybody will be more happier if they don't own property. What is this crazy Marxist stuff? Well, the Democrats are definitely Marxist, socialist, and they're pushing their agendas. And they make this known. I'm not accusing them of something. They've made this known that that's who they are.
Oh, they're proud of it. I mean, we've seen Jared Polis pushing for his transit corridors and, high density housing in suburban communities that do not want it, and creating these little 15-minute style cities where everything can be in one spot, make it easier to lock you down when the next time they want to do that, and
Yeah.
tell you, hey, you don't need a car, you don't need to eat meat, you don't need to do anything you want to do. Just live the lifestyle that these politicians want to push on you. And we've seen this agenda, unfortunately, here in Colorado. And I think a lot of people are waking up to to really understanding how bad it's gotten. I think COVID woke a lot of people up. And of course, these last couple of years in the legislature, we've seen just this boldness among these authoritarian Democrats who want to control every aspect of our lives and totally just socially engineer society to their own making.
Yeah, and when somebody like me comes along and stands up, the Republicans have not done a good job over the last decade of really truly taking a stand. They've had little brief moments of standing, but for the most part, they don't. You'll have 2 or 3 Republicans per session that take a stand. And when I stand up and look the speaker in the face and say, no, you do not get to tell me how I think about a protest, they shut you down and they bully you and they call you names in the media and they attack you and they'll literally, I said this, but she will call me in the office off to the side and yell at me and scream at me. And when she's done, I've told her the same thing every time. You're not my boss. You're not in charge of me. The voters sent me here, and you cannot tell me how to think about a protest. But this is what they're doing. They want their control, and anybody that stands up against them, they're not just going to debate them and argue or do whatever on the floor. They're going to kick them out of committees. They're going to slam them in the media. They're going to scream and yell. They're going to unofficially censure me, which is what the speaker did. These are all not okay ways to handle this. And when you actually break the Constitution to come after me, I'm going to sue you.
Oh, that's great. Well, I applaud your efforts doing that. And I think a lot of Colorado voters or a lot of Colorado citizens don't understand the power of the leadership in the legislature to control who's going to win the next election, right? You know, you have the 527s, these fundraising groups where the lobbyists donate tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars to, and then House leadership or Senate leadership, legislative leadership can decide who that money goes to. So if there's an incumbent that they don't like, maybe somebody who's not playing ball, like some of the people who maybe resigned, who don't want to go along with the agenda, you know, they can withhold funds, prevent them from getting money to help them on their campaign for reelection, maybe, help get a primary opponent poised to take them out next time so they can get somebody a little bit more compliant. Like you said, dissent is not tolerated. This diversity of opinion is not tolerated. And the sooner Coloradans wake up to this idea that it's not what they taught you in civics class in middle school, it's an authoritarian system where they say, do what we say or we will push you out. If you're not part of the agenda, you're part of the problem. And the more people realize that, I think the sooner we'll be coming to a solution. So I guess part of my final question here, the lawsuits, I applaud you for what you're doing there. I'm really happy to see the fights in the courts. We've seen our rights defended in the courts across the United States here recently, with the Supreme Court really standing up for the U.S. Constitution. But what can people do? What can people do, outside of the lawsuits? Where's the hope for Coloradans, for people who believe in liberty and freedom to move us back towards a constitution and liberty-minded state?
Well, there's actually a bunch of things, but I can kind of simplify this. One is truly get involved. Don't just sit on the sidelines and talk. And I understand, there is we're frustrated, we're talking, and I get that. I've done that. But this is part of the reason that I ran for office is because I'm tired of just talking. And so get involved, do something, run for school boards. That's a major battleground right now. Run for school board, run for county commissioners, city councils, whatever you're doing. If you're a Christian, I would say spend a lot of time praying about this. This is vitally important to me is we need people across our state praying, really seeking God about this. God still is in control. We just celebrated Christmas, and in Isaiah 7, it says, and the government shall rest upon his shoulders. Well, that's still true. All governments are subjected to Christ. And so that's our responsibility. The next thing is anytime you see a bill come up, try to get to the Capitol to testify. If you're in favor or against, get to the Capitol and testify. Sending letters and emails, the representatives, the senators don't really read them. They may every now and then read one or two, but they really don't. They did because you're not there in their face. I need you to be there to get in their face about this stuff because they are bullies. And they will run over they will run over anybody. And so the more en masse that we get together, that's huge. And then have conversation, engage people with conversation. If you know something is wrong, talk to people at work about it. If you know that there's something wrong with the school board, go to a school board meeting and talk about it. Talk to your neighbors, talk to the parents of children. Have conversations and don't just lay down. And then the last one, and this is just a big one for me because I'm a pastor still, is if you're a pastor or you're part of the church or something, get the church involved. We have not been doing that. The church thinks they're supposed to stay out of politics. That's not the case. Your 501c3 tax exempt status is not going to be in danger. Get involved. The church has got to step up and be the active body of Christ that it's supposed to be. And that's where we are. That's where I am. And we are moving forward with this lawsuit.
No, I can't agree more with everything you said. I think one of the biggest counterweights to state power is social power. So church, community, building something outside of the government that has power, has something where people can come together and share ideas. That's going to be what ultimately, counterbalances the state authoritarian power that's trying to control our lives. We've seen this loss, right? In this last generations, we've seen a shrinking of the church going communities. We've seen social clubs, we've seen fraternal organizations kind of wither away, these groups that held society together over
Yes.
generations for our grandparents and their parents, where people belong to something outside of state control. So much of that has disappeared. And unfortunately, the state's kind of just creeping into every aspect of life, filling that vacuum, I think. Additionally, I really liked what you said about showing up at the state capitol. That's going to be a big push for Free State Colorado going into 2024 and in the future, is just making it easy, providing guides to people about what's going on at the state capitol, making it easy to testify, where you can find the bills, where you can find the committee rooms, where you can track that legislation. One of the things I'll be doing is every week I'll be hosting a Zoom call with anybody, hopefully all pro-liberty individuals here, who going over the bills of the week. Here's what's coming up in the legislature. Here's the good pro-liberty bills. Show up, support our pro-liberty leaders, show up and have some support, but also show up and speak out against this bad legislation that wants to take away our rights and deprive us of our liberties. I got to tell people, it's one of the most empowering feelings ever to sit 10 feet away from some of these really bad legislators, these bad politicians who want to take away your rights, and just look them in the eye and tell them they're wrong. Tell them they're wrong. And I've seen it. I've seen them become very rude and disrespectful when you challenge their beliefs. But more of that, more citizens standing up and speaking out, letting them know it's not okay what they're doing. I think that's a key component. And of course, like you said, getting involved. We have so many huge elections coming up here in 2024. I think there's a massive opportunity in the state house for several seats to be flipped, maybe
Yep.
5 or 6 seats from the Democrat side to the Republican side. Most people in Colorado, not most, but a lot of people in Colorado believe it's a blue state. The Democrats control everything. There's no hope. But it's not true. If you look at the data, if you look at the 2022 election results, I mean, there's 12 state house seats that Democrats won with less than 3,000 votes. There's the 5 state house seats they won with less than 1,500 votes. I mean, some of these seats they won with just a couple hundred votes. And if we have an organized effort of constitutionally minded individuals willing to put their time, effort, and money into these campaigns, I think we can really make some headway.
Yeah, I agree. I believe Colorado's still a red state, but we've been lied to, we've been bullied, we've been pushed into a corner. Well, the red needs to step up, and we have not been doing that, but we need to. It's necessary. It's vital.
Well, Representative Bottoms, I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk about this important lawsuit and giving some more information and context. I really appreciate you providing some behind the scenes information about what goes on down at the state capitol, because I think more than ever, people really need to understand what's going on in our state government, how it works, and what they can do about it. So I really appreciate the time you took today, and please keep us up to date about what's going on and any efforts that people in the liberty community here in Colorado can do to help.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Call me anytime you need me.
All right, sir. Well, take care. Thank you.
Sir.